I'm about to kill a moose. Every 3 months, ComicLink has their seasonal featured auction. It's 3 days long. It's about 12 hours of me watching the timers run out on about 1,000 books. The reason I do it is it creates a ton of content. And I also do it because this auction, ComicLink's, is, in my opinion, the beating heart of the collectible comic hobby. The prices that I see on ComicLink are, I think, a very organic reflection of the actual market. They don't feed their prices into Go Collect. You often see what people really want to pay. You see a handful of books go in the hundreds of thousands. You see a couple dozen books go in the tens of thousands. You see a lot of books in the thousands. And the books that would sell in the hundreds, they usually will push into other smaller auctions. There's, about a dozen guys who are bidding on these $1 million books at Heritage. These ComicLink auctions are, I think, for the larger subgroup of, I think, about 20,000 comic book collectors who are buying and selling comics at this level. They're not like modern books that just came out and suddenly blew up to $100. It's not that sort of what I think of as scratch-off lottery ticket end of the hobby, and it's not the billionaire big whale end of the hobby. There actually hasn't been anyone in the comments speculating that I'm a shill for ComicLink or anything like that. Amazingly, I have not had one single person raise that issue. In fact, what am I doing wrong that nobody's accusing me of being a shill for ComicLink? Come on, guys. I don't work for ComicLink. I'm not being paid by ComicLink. Honestly, I'm not even sure they like me. They seem tolerant. If I don't like a book, I'm going to tell you I don't like a book. If I see something fishy, I'm going to tell you I see something fishy. Anyway, we've got the auctions closing. It actually started 10 minutes or so ago. So the first few books have closed. I got to fix something. There's a light that is about to fall over if I don't fix it. I got to go do that. 1 second. That looks a lot more stable. It's not making me nervous anymore. To finish that moose analogy, I'm about to kill a moose, and then I'm going to spend the next couple months skinning it, making all the cuts, stuffing it in the freezer, all that stuff you do with the moose. It's quite an ordeal. If you've ever killed a moose yourself, I haven't. I never would. From what I understand, it's a whole lot of work. I'm gonna be eating this moose for a long time, or feeding it to you, the viewer. Enjoy my moose. Put this on because I'm an old man. Action Comics 10 is the first book in the auction. I didn't cover this really in the previews because it's restored, but it is the third Superman cover at 6.5. Slight B1 restoration. That means it's old restoration from the olden days, most likely. So we had a sale 3.5 years ago on Comic Connect for $27,612. There's no real fair market for this. There aren't many copies in restored 6.5. There are 4. $27,000 sale. I don't think it's going to hit that here. Let's see what we closed at. By the way, I'm going to try and catch up with where the auctions are closing right now, but at the moment I'm a little behind. This closed 18 minutes ago. $23,222 closed at $25,000. Almost meeting that sale from Comic Connect 3 years ago, which is surprising. Action Comics 13 and 15. Now I found this one interesting because the fair market on 13 is $60,000. Fair market on 15 at 7.5, a higher grade, $20,000. Higher grade, far lower fair market for this issue 15. I don't exactly know why 13 is valued so much higher. I think that's just, there's so few sales. The fair market is set very infrequently for these books. I expect the $20,000 mark to be much closer to where we end up than the $60,000. Let's see though. 5.5, ooh, $31,001 closes at $35,000. So that's a $60,000 fair market, but that was obviously super outdated and high. Now the 7.5, already above the $20,000 fair market, $22,722, and it closes at $29,111. I anticipated that these would sell for about the same amount, even though this has 3 times the fair market. And yeah, I would say they did. $35,000 for the 13, $29,111 for the 15. I like the 15 cover better. It's the 5th Superman cover. This is the 4th Superman cover. This is sort of the classic Superman thing, saving a train from going off the rails. He did it in the Superman movie, right? He placed himself in that break between the two segments of rail tracks in the original Superman movie in the 70s. So it's like a big Superman thing to do. So I get it for that reason, but I just like this drawing better. All right, let's move on. First, Mitzel-Spitlick. First, Mr. Mixel-Spitlick. Mixel-Spitlick. Action Comics number 80, 8.0. Fair market 1,950. This is a very high grade copy of the first cover appearance of Mr. I'm going to say it again now. Here we go. Mixel-Spitlick. 1,900 fair market, already beating it at 2,300. Closes for 2,300. It's looking pretty good so far for the Superman books. This is 20% above fair market. First, Brainiac, Action Comics 242. Fair market on this one is $15,000. We've got Brainiac most likely coming in the next Superman movie, which is a couple years out. So this is the perfect time for spec buyers to go in big on the first appearance of Brainiac. This is a entry-level high-grade copy, but it is cream to off-white pages. $12,050 is what the bidding was at, and it closed at $16,500. Once again, we're above fair market on early Superman books. This one's 10% above the fair market price. Now, if you've watched my past auctions, you see over and over books closing for 10 to 20% below fair market. This is so far a change in the trend, but Superman's hot right now. We had the great Superman movie last year. We've got Supergirl coming this year, and we've got another Superman movie in development. We know we're going to be seeing a lot more Superman in the years ahead, so it does make sense that these books are going up. We'll see if this trend continues as we go through the rest of the books in this auction. Now we've got the first Supergirl. First Supergirl I watched close for almost double fair market at 6.5. in the previous featured auction. Here we have an even better copy, 8.0 off-white pages. The fair market is $18,000. The bidding was at $12,861 in the final minutes. This closed 19 minutes ago at $16,500. Okay, so there were a little less than 10% below fair market. That's a surprise, but also that's a lot. That's a lot of money. I think the 6.5 sold for $9,700, so it tracks. I'm going to gloss over this first Sandman. This is a blue label 1.5. I think in the last auction we had a restored in higher grade that sold for a disappointing amount, but this is just 1.5, so it shouldn't sell for a ton. We don't have a fair market at 1.5. There's only 3 copies. At 1.8, though, we have a 13,500 fair market, and that's virtually the same. That was just 2 weeks ago on Heritage, a 13,420 sale. What's it going to go for on ComicLink? Less. Let's see. I'm guessing, without looking, $12,000. Let's see what happens. Bidding was at $9,813, and it closed at $10,149. Less indeed. All-Star Comics number 8. This is the first Wonder Woman comic, but she is not on the cover. And this is a restored 3.0 C2 restoration. Lowest quality of restoration, but a relatively small amount, off white to white pages. So we had a sale 2 months ago for $13,200 on Heritage. Oh, that's right. I remember now. This is the same copy. A comic that was bought on Heritage 2 months ago is being flipped on ComicLink. Why? Why does that happen? Off the top of my head in the preview, I thought maybe it was an accident, but you don't bid $13,000 on something by accident. So what's the story? Please, someone tell me, what's really going on? Why does someone buy a comic for $13,200 at one auction house, paying a 20% commission, and then put it up at a different auction house 2 months later? It was bidding at $9,867. It closed at $13,000. Almost to break even. Subtract the commission, $1,300 commission, they take $11,700 from that. So they lost $1,500. I don't know why someone does that. Occam's razor, the most obvious explanation is buyer's remorse. They bought it, changed their mind, didn't want it, dumped it on ComicLink. That's probably all it is, but it's weird. All Top number 16 had a commenter today telling me this is their all-time favorite comic book cover. $11,500 fair market, bidding at $3,400. Ooh, see what it closed at. $3,700. There's 2 copies at 7.5. I'm not going to try and read the labels, but I can see that this is off-white. So this sold in 2002 23 years ago and change for $552. And this is the same copy that just sold for $3,700, despite having a fair market of $11,500. So no sales here that really justify the $11,500 valuation. It must be an adjacent sale at a higher or lower grade. 8.0, we have these pedigree sales for $13,000 and $19,200. This is not a pedigree book. That's going to skew where it's at. There's really no basis. Somebody overpaid a couple years ago, and that set the price very high at 7.5. All Winners Comics number 5, which I've got right here in 6.0, centerfold detached. So much worse copy. Here it is at 7.5, really bright colors, at least on this scan. Fair market is $4,700, and the bidding did make it up to $45.44, and it sold for $45.44. Decent, good, I'm happy with that. All Winners 14. I stopped at this one because it is a pedigree copy in 9.6 from the Promise Collection. I've got a commenter who chimed in to say that the Promise Collection books are generally overgraded. Heritage had an auction, I think he said in 2021. I didn't know any of this, for the Promise Collection, and they all sold at huge prices, inflated because of the story of the Promise Collection. I've talked about it before, I'll go over it again. Guy went off to war, World War II, gave his collection of comics to his brother, made him promise to hang on to them for when he got back, keep them in good condition. The brother died in the war, and his sibling hung on to them, apparently very generously graded by CGC with this pedigree label. Peak of the market bubble, so they went for very high prices, and you see them being sold off at auctions in the years since then and not getting nearly what they sold for back then. Yep, here it is. Sold for $25,200 in the Heritage auction 4.5 years ago. So according to my commenter, whose name escapes me, those sales were all way too high. Should not fetch anywhere near that now. Biddings at $10,808, closed for $14,750. This wasn't a fair market price because there's nothing else to go on. It was just a single sale, but that's round about 40% below the sale from 5 years ago. Amazing Fantasy 15, the cornerstone of every auction. If an auction does not have an Amazing Fantasy 15 in it, it's not a high-end auction. This one has 2. It has a 5.5 and a 4.5. I don't even have to look at my notes for this. I remember the fair market on the 5.5 is $54,000. The fair market on the 4.5 is $34,000. I said in the previews that I think the 4.5 looks better despite the Marvel chipping, and the huge gap in prices between 4.5 and 5.5 is $20,000. So with the fair market of $54,000, the bidding was at $49,000. Did it hit fair market? It did not, just below $53,007. Negligible difference of a little under $1,000. $34,000 fair market. On this one, bidding's at $31,306, and it closes for $38,606, a little bit over 10% above fair market. I gotta play catch up now. I wanna get up to these actual live closings. Amazing Spider-Man 1, we got 3 copies. The 7.5 has a fair market of $30,000. Bidding's at $31,001. Sells for $36,000. Almost 20% above fair market. 5.5 has a fair market of $12,500, and it's already well above that. Sells for $17,500. This book is going up in price. What is that, 40% above fair market? 4.0, fair market's $8,750, already above it at $9,111. Sells for $9,411. All 3 of these books sold for above fair market, some considerably above fair market. That's surprising. This is a book that I've made the case for it being overpriced. It's not the first appearance. Amazing Fantasy 15 is so much better of a cover, and Amazing Spider-Man 1 has always been very high, higher than most other first appearances in the Marvel Silver Age. This book's killing it in this auction. Amazing Spider-Man number 2, first appearance of the Vulture, 7.0, signed by good old Stan Lee in a annoying silver Sharpie. Fair market on this book is $5,250. Bidding was at $7,002, and it closed for $7,659. It's not just Superman. I'm seeing a trend. It now is consistent between Superman and Spider-Man. Although I will say, both of them have movies coming out. Spider-Man's got a movie coming out in a few months. Superman's got Supergirl this year, and probably Superman next year or the year after that. So both of them are in the pipeline. Of course they are. It's Spider-Man and Superman. Amazing Spider-Man number 3 This is a woefully undergraded copy. It got a 7.0. There's only one defect noted on this book, just the crease in the bottom right corner. Barely anything. How much does a 1-inch crease bring the grade down? I don't think it's going down from a 9.8 to a 7.0. There's nothing else in the notes. They don't mention in the notes the upper left corner, which I can see, but the other corners look great. What would I give this? The 7.0 fair market is $4,400, so ostensibly that's where this should sell at. But an 8.0 is $9,500. And I think this is more like an 8.0 book, or even an 8.5. 8.5 is $10,500. The bidding on this was $8,179, and it closed for $8,680. So it closed for the current price between 7.5 and 8.0, a little below an 8.0. I'm glad that buyers have a good eye. They don't just look at the number. They look at the actual book, and they recognize that this is a fantastic 7.0 that should sell for considerably more, and it did. That said, though, also, the gap between 7.0 and 8.0 is massive. It's more than a 2 times jump from 7.0 to 8.0. I think the fair market at 7.0 was low regardless of this book, because this should be like a 20 or 30% jump, not a 120% jump. Now this is where I'm going to catch up a little bit. We got a bunch of Spider-Mans that I'm not going to cover. We got a 7.5 of 5, a 9.4 of 6, a 9.4 of 8. We do have a lot of high-grade copies. I'm not going to spend time on Spider-Man. 9.6 of issue 10, not a great issue. Sold for $5,900. I'm not checking prices on this. I'm not going to... Okay, fine. I'll get a little distracted for Amazing Spider-Man 14. Check out. I got mine right here at 5.0. This is a 9.2, $22,000 fair market. What is it going to sell for? It's at $12,250 and it closes for $13,150. Wow, that's super low. It's off-white to white. When has a 9.2 of the first Green Goblin sold for anywhere near that price? Look at this. Since the start of the pandemic, it sold for $10,800. And then the last 8 sales of this super high grade copy have all been for much, much higher. Wow, what a drop. And this is a very nice 9.2. This seems reasonably graded at 9.2. What the hell happened? I talked about this 9.6 of issue 15, thinking this would be a good buy. Clearly I was mistaken. The best buy so far was the first Green Goblin at 9.2 for $13,000. Fair market of ASM 15 for Spirits of Craven at 9.6 is $20,000, but we're at $17,000 and it closes for $26,755. So that one's going up 30% and change increase between the fair market and the sale price. Boy, I kind of wish I'd gotten this one. It's fine. I mean, look at it, honestly. What's the difference between this and the 9.2? To look at, nothing. It's just a number. I'm happy. I talked a little bit about this because it's a pedigree of issue 26, not a key issue by any stretch, but it is the Twin Cities pedigree, off-white to white pages. This copy sold for $4,777 on Comic Connect in 2017, but the non-pedigree fair market for 9.6 is $3,200. Bidding was at $3,021 and it closed at $6,766. Wow. So 9 years ago, this sold for $4,777. This pedigree copy went up almost $2,000 in that time. Inflation adjusted, I think that's pretty much where we're at. Yes, skipping the rest of these Amazing Spider-Mans has caught me up. We've got this issue 58 is closing right now. Issue 65 is closing in 39 seconds. Here we go. Okay, I can relax now. Scoot up a little bit. Punisher's closing in 2 minutes. First Punisher, Amazing Spider-Man 129. And we've got 3 in this auction. A 9.8 white pages, a 9.6 white pages, and a 9.6 signed white pages. Signed not by Stan Lee, but by Jerry Conway and Roy Thomas. We've got a fair market for the 9.8 at $16,500, but I want to stress there are 217 9.8 copies of this book. This is one of those 3 Bronze Age books that are in very high population and skyrocketed during the pandemic. Those three being Hulk 181, Giant Size X-Men 1, and this one, Amazing Spider-Man 129. $57,000 was the peak sale in March of 2022. I see one here on Heritage for $13,800, but this was an off-white to white. Whites are selling for more like $16,000 to $18,000. So this is one of those books that's kind of like a stock in the stock market. There are a lot of copies. They sell very often. It just closed. $18,000 is what the bidding was at, and it closed for $19,002. Okay, so we're above fair market on this one. In fact, we're above any of these recent closings. You have to go back a year to find a sale higher than that. I get it. I know what's going on. Punisher is going to be in the next Spider-Man movie. Joe Bernthal, I think his name is appearing with Spider-Man in Spider-Man Brand New Day. This is a spec book. There you go. The 9.6 fair market is $5,000. It's going at $4,818, closes at $5,355, also above fair market. The signed 9.6, always got to specify, not signed by Stan Lee. I'd say 80% of all books out there that are signed by Stan Lee, whether he had anything to do with them or not. This was at $5,600, so a little bit of a premium for those signatures. Did it close for more of a premium? It did not. $245 higher than the regular 9.6 white pages for this signed white pages. And I would imagine that the cost of those signatures was at or above $245. Yeah, these were both signed very recently. This was signed 4 months ago, 5 months ago. Both those guys are still kicking. That's nice to know. But it did not pay off for whoever got these books signed and then sold it immediately. Spider-Man 300, perfect copy, 9.8 white pages, closing in 20 seconds. Fair market these days is $2,600. Closed and didn't move. $2,412. Amazing Stories 29. We're done with Spider-Man. This is a book I love. Gosh, I would even consider bidding on it. $2,055. I had a commenter today. He bought Amazing Stories at 5.0. I can't check Go Collect on these prices because if they cover pulps, I can't find them in there. I don't know that they cover pulp sales. There's really not much of a guide record for pulp sales at all. This is from 1928. When I have seen these books sell, they sell $10,000 to $20,000. So this is a 4.5. The commenter said he bought a 5.0 for $2,000. And here we got the 4.5 already above $2,000. It's at $2,289. Hasn't moved. Now this cover is dim. It's a little dark. And it closed for $2,650. So the guy who got it at 5.0 for $2,000 did well. We got an Avengers 1 closing, but I want to get my copy. I've never shown you my copy. We've got an Avengers 1 closing in a few seconds that I really want to talk about, but I also really want to show you my copy of Amazing Stories 36. This is the second cover appearance of Buck Rogers. Actually, no. I think this is the first and only cover appearance of Buck Rogers because, as I said in the preview, that's not actually Buck Rogers on the cover there. That's somebody from one of the other stories. This is Buck Rogers. I should have read the notes on it better. I bought a raw copy, and there's small amounts of glue on the cover, which resulted in this getting a purple label. So I got it for a very good price, but I did not realize it was restored. And he's got those Jodhpur pants. I was just researching this today, actually. Jodhpur, named after a region of India where the people wore those pants on horseback, and it became popular in England, then became popular in America in the 1920s and 30s. I think those pants look ridiculous. I'm going to cut it short now at the end of Amazing. I think I just finished Amazing Spider-Man, did that one Amazing Stories book. Next video, I will start in with Avengers. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.